Hare Krishna devotees, today's topic is Bhakti throughout Gita. So, which means that every chapter and all the places, Bhagavad Gita is actually stressing or emphasizing about Bhakti. Okay, so let us start with this verse Bhagavad Gita 8.28. Anybody wants to read this verse? Vedishu Yajneshu
May I,
Tapassu
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bhagavad Gita 8.28. Vedeshu yajneshu tapassu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanamupaiti chadyam. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal board. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you very much. So, this verse says Vedeshu Yajneshu Tapassu Chaiva Danishu Yat Punya Phalam Pradishtam Atyeti Tat Sarvam Idam Viditva Yogi Param Sthanam Upaiti Chadyam. You see, this indicates the power of devotional service. That is the topmost yoga, Bhakti Yoga. So, if you do the Bhakti Yoga system, the power is that whatever results that you will be getting by studying the Vedas, performing all sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, pursuing philosophical, fruitive activities, and just by doing devotional service, we get all of this. And it is given here that, at the end, yogi param sthanam upaiti. That means the yogi will go to the param sthanam, that is Parampadam. In different words, Paramsthanam is Parampadam, or the Lord of the abode. The yogi will go to the Lord of the abode. Alright. So let's do one thing. Let's go through this purport once and then we will discuss this. Sharing my screen here for the purport. Okay. Here you go. It says like this. Okay. So here it says, so this verse is the summary of 7th and 8th chapter, which particularly deal with Krishna consciousness and devotional service. So 7th chapter is the knowledge of the Supreme, 8th chapter is attaining the Supreme. So in 7th chapter we have seen Krishna explains that it's very, very rare for somebody to come to devotional service, and he explains 4 types of people who come to Krishna, 4 types of people who do not come to Krishna, and the importance of devotional service. In the 8th chapter, Krishna explains that at the time of death, anybody who remembers Krishna goes back to Godhead. But the one who forgets or who remembers something else other than Krishna, he has to get some different kind of nature. So, and then also in the 8th chapter, one there is very key words that we have to remember, that where Krishna says the one who is always worshipping Krishna attains to Krishna without any doubt and very fast. So continuing from there, this is the conclusion for the 7th chapter and the 8th chapter. Okay. So here it is explained about the Vedic system. You see, in the Vedic system, there is the first ashrama, which is called as the Brahmachari ashrama, in which a brahmachari is actually going to be living with the spiritual master like a servant. But this is the system which is created by Krishna himself, right? So this system is created by Krishna. So it's a spiritual system where the students are expected to be living with the spiritual master, and they don't even eat food unless their spiritual master orders them. Okay. So this is how the Vedic principles are. So I tell you one very nice story in relation with this. So one day what happened was Lord Krishna, right? He was in the Sandipani Muni's ashrama. to learn the Vedas. So when he was in the Sadipani Muni ashrama, his spiritual master had instructed Krishna and his friends to go and get some wood for fire for the sake of fire sacrifice. So Krishna and his friend, they go and then they go to the forest. But what happens when they're coming back, there was a sudden heavy storm in the night. And there was no possibility for them to return back in that storm. It became all dark and there was no possibility for them to come back at all. So what they do is they will be like, climbing a tree, and then they will take the shelter of a very dense tree and they keep themselves safe there, right? And then the next day they come back. Then the spiritual master was very, very worried. Sandipani Muni was very worried about Krishna and his friend. And when they come back, he becomes very glad, and he also praises them and says that, you have done so wonderfully, you have executed the instructions of your spiritual master, right? So this is how it is, okay? The brahmachari ashrama is like that. You see, whatever the spiritual master's instruction may be, however difficult they may be, they must be executed. That is the thing. And it is also said that unless the spiritual master says you can have your food, one is not even supposed to be having actually the food also. So that's so strict ashram, right? So that is like that. So under the spiritual master, people undergo Vedic studies, right? So we are talking about the first part of it here. Vedeshu yagneshu tapassu chaiva. So Vedeshu means study of the scriptures. So under the authority of a spiritual master, one will be reading Vedas, studying the Vedas. So this is a kind of a training, right? So, and Vedas have different subject matters in it. So Veda and Vedanta. So what we are studying is Vedanta. Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam is Vedanta. And Veda contains different types of information which is necessary for human beings to conduct their lives. It contains information about moral sciences, it contains information about medical sciences, it contains information about music, it contains information about how do you rule a kingdom, and so many more things, right? So all of that, and also about we have the martial arts, which is Dhanur Veda, which is a part of the Vedas. So Kshatriyas particularly will be studying this Dhanur Veda. That is how to use weapons, like, with spiritual powers. So like that. So afterwards, Vedeshu Yagneshu. Yagneshu means that is performing many sacrifices. Here is written, right? So first of all, Vedeshu, Yagneshu, Tapassu, Chaiva. Vedas study is meant for the brahmacharis. Yajnas and Dana, Yajna and Dana is meant for the householders. So after 25 years of age, the student takes the opinion of the spiritual master and permission of the spiritual master whether to enter the household life or to remain as a brahmachari for life. And the spiritual master decides and tells him that, okay, you can actually enter into grihastha. And that time, with the proper training, right, with the proper spiritual training, he enters into the grihastha. And then, as a grihastha, performs many sacrifices, right? These sacrifices are meant for purification and for various, starting from vivaha. Vivaha itself is a sacrifice, vivaha yajna. And there are many, many sacrifices which are mentioned in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. So these sacrifices are performed for achieving further enlightenment, right? And the next point a householder must be doing is dana. It's one of the important duties of householders to be offering charity according to the country, time and place. Time, place and circumstances, and to the right candidate in the mode of goodness. So, see, it's written here, we must discriminate between the charity in mode of goodness, passion and ignorance. The three types of charity, this is explained in detail. We can see in the chapter number 17, but we should actually be giving to those people who are spiritually inclined and who are detached from material activities, who can know how to use this charity in a proper spiritual way. So that's the proper mode of goodness, charity. And then comes something, Veda, Yajna, Dana. Okay, so we did Veda, study of the Vedas, Yajna, performance of the Yajna, sacrifice. Next comes the, we spoke about Daneshu, that is the charity. And then Tapassu. Tapassu means undergoing different types of austerity. So undergoing different type of austerity is meant for Vanaprastha and particularly for Sannyasa. Let us see that. So here we see, after returning from the household life, upon accepting Vanaprastha, he undergoes severe penances, living in the forest, dressing with the bark tree, not shaming, etc. So these are all the different processes which are given in the Vedas to gradually purify oneself, to gradually come to the spiritual platform. And then, so that they will be able to go to the perfectional stage of life. For example, just like we know some great kings who have retired to the forest, right? Who take sannyas and then who have retired to the forest, like Rishabhadeva, right? So they go to the forest and then they have retired there and they've done spiritual practice to be able to perfect their lives, right? So like that, so sannyasa is like the final stage where they're aiming to get to the perfectional stage of life. Now, among these people who are not able to make it to the spiritual world, they at least go to the heavenly planets, and at least they become more advanced than what they were in the previous life, right? Or sometimes they can be going to the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, or sometimes they can go to the Vaikuntha planets. This is the path of the Vedic literatures. It's written here, okay? So multiple paths are there as per the Vedas. See, a person who completely neglects the Vedic literature and more or less lives like cats and dogs is not promoted but is demoted to hellish planets. But the one who follows the Vedic literature is doing some kind of yajnas, fire sacrifices, can gradually elevate to the heavenly planets. But for the one who is reading the Vedas and performing tapasya, may elevate to still more higher planetary systems, which are like Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka, like that. And somebody who is really very spiritual can enter into Brahma Jyoti, and pure devotees can enter into Vaikuntha Loka or Krishna Loka. This is the path. So now comes the very powerful point. The beauty of Krishna consciousness is, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of different orders of life. So it may not be possible today in Kali Yuga to undergo these kind of ashramas. We do not have any kind of brahmachari ashramas, which we can join, or we didn't get any opportunity. And nor as grihasthas do we have any opportunity to perform fire sacrifices like before, nor can we perform the strict austerities that used to be performed in the previous ages, right? But the beauty here is, simply by taking to Krishna consciousness, simply by accepting the instructions of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can get all the results of all the Vedic rituals which are given for different orders of life. All of them can be attained simply by following the instructions of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by following the instructions of the previous acharyas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, always chant the names of Krishna, right? So, Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Karo Krishna Shiksha. Speak about Krishna, worship Krishna, and learn about Krishna. This is Krishna consciousness. And Krishna consciousness is not at all difficult to execute. It is susukam kartum avyayam. So we have seen, for example, Krishna consciousness execution is as simple and as easy as participating in a Ratha Yatra. So everybody loves to be a part of Rath Yatra. It is so blissful to be a part of the procession, to be, taking the prasadam of the Lord, to participate in the decoration of the Lord and all. It's not at all difficult. This is susukam kartumabhyayam. This cannot get anything any better than this. It is so simple yet so powerful. It is so easy yet so powerful. So this cannot be neglected. Okay, let's go and see what Prabhupada is saying in the next purport here, next paragraph. The words idam viditva indicate that one should understand the instructions given by Sri Krishna in the chapter and the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So here we have, it says here, Atyeti sarvam idam viditva. That means by knowing this, Atyeti sarvam idam viditva. By knowing what? When you say by knowing this, what is it explaining? Prabhupada is saying by knowing the chapter number 7 and the chapter number 8. Right? By doing this chapter and the chapter number 7 of Bhagavad Gita. So what's there in chapter number 7 and chapter number 8? Like I said, knowledge of the absolute, 4 types of people who come to Krishna, 4 types of people who do not come to Krishna. And it talks about less intelligent people who worship the demigods. And the 8th chapter contains how we should remember Krishna at the time of death, and how we can promote ourselves to Krishna Loka. So this is what we are supposed to be doing. And again, very important point, one should not try to understand these chapters by any scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing in the association with the devotees. Bhagavad Gita is not meant for speculation. It is supposed to be explained only by devotees. Even Krishna explains, in the chapter number 18, Krishna gives an instruction. Do not instruct Bhagavad Gita to somebody who is not a devotee at all. So the instruction is you should not be actually telling this to somebody who is not a devotee of Krishna at all. So that's what Krishna said very clearly. But the devotees are so merciful that they preach this so that everybody gets an opportunity to become the devotee of Krishna. They do not discriminate. They still preach so that everybody gets a chance to become a devotee. Again, now chapter number 7 through 12 are the essence of Bhagavad Gita. This is an important point. This is like a sandwich. It's explained the first 6 chapters, last 6 chapters are like the covering, outer cover. You see, when you have a sandwich, so you have the stuffing in between, right? And you have 2 buns, or like a cream biscuit. There are 2 biscuits and then cream in between. So this is the cream. Chapter number 7 to 12. This is chapter number 8. Very important. The Bhakti Yoga. And then they are especially protected by Lord. These things are particularly protected by Lord. If one is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita, especially these middle 6 chapters, in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculations, etc. For one can achieve all these results of these activities simply by Krishna consciousness. So our duty is to follow these middle 6 chapters very faithfully, starting from chapter number 7 to chapter number 12, and execute these whatever is the instructions given in the chapter number 7, 8, 9, the most confidential knowledge, 10, knowledge of the absolute, and 11, the universal form, and 12, devotional service, the devotional service. So this is very important. So in the past, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are so many examples of devotees who have been able to go back to Godhead without having to go all of this. What is that example that we can think about? What's the example that we can think of? That is Sri Narada. So Sri Narada, actually he was Dasi Putra. He was the son of a maid servant in the previous lifetime. And being the son of a maid servant, he did not have access to any kind of spiritual knowledge. Neither he was a brahmachari, nor he was a grihastha, nor he was a vanaprastha, or anything like that. All he did was, when Bhaktivedantas, that is devotees, had come to his village, he along with his mother had served them, and he attentively served those devotees heard from the devotees, took their instructions, and took their remnants. That's it. And he took the mantra and he was continuously executing devotional service in the way that they had explained. And then in one stroke, that is the one stroke of Krishna consciousness, he's still a young boy. He was even able to see Krishna just for a moment. Momentarily, he was able to see Krishna, and later he got the instructions from Krishna that he must be always remembering Krishna until he leaves his body. And he remembers Krishna at the time of death, and actually he gets the spiritual body called Narada. Narada is not having a material body, it's a spiritual body. He's a son of Lord Brahma, and he's not bound, he's not a conditioned living entity like us. He's Nitya Siddha, and he's roaming around all the universes without any restriction. And he's preaching this Bhagavad-gītā devotional service to everybody. Right? So this is Narada. He did not have to go through Vedeshu, Yagneshu, Daneshu, Tapassu Chaiva, anything of that. Okay. All he did was Krishna consciousness. That's it. And he was able to get the best of all the benefits. So, very beautiful purport. Let's see. One who has a little faith in Bhagavad Gita should learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee, because it is stated in the 4th chapter clearly that Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. So we see Bhagavad Gita is read by wide range of people. Some people read it for motivation, some people read it for getting some kind of punya, some people are like meditators or dhyana yogis also read Bhagavad Gita, avoiding certain sections, and the jnanis also read Bhagavad Gita, interpreting in a different way, and the devotees are also reading Bhagavad Gita, but the instruction is that we must always only read it or understand it from devotees only. Because why is that? In the 4th chapter, Krishna has explained Bhagavad Gita. He said he is given to the sun god. Sun god is given to Vivasvan. Vivasvan gave it to Ikshvaku. So they are all disciples of Krishna. They are all devotees of Krishna. Okay. This is a parampara of devotees, not a parampara of jnanis or dhyana yogis or anything like that. Bhagavad Gita is going in the parampara of devotees. And Krishna also explains that we have to execute devotional service like the previous authorities. Purvai Purvataram. So we don't have to invent anything new. We should not sit here and try to speculate. You see, there's some speculators like Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is symbolic. Kurukshetra never happened. Krishna is the mind. Pandavas are the senses. This kind of speculation we must avoid strictly. Therefore, we should actually learn from devotee of Krishna and not from mental speculators. This is the sign of faith. When one searches for a devotee, fortunately gets a devotee association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. By advancement in the association of devotees, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all misgivings about Krishna and God, and about Krishna's activity, form, pastimes, name, and features. You see, every human being has so many questions. Right? There are so many questions with respect to God. Who is God? Where is God? What is God doing? What does God want? Right? And why is God so strict? Why does God award punishments to us? Why doesn't God give us happiness? So many thousands of questions that we have. All of the questions will be answered. Why is there suffering in this world? Blah, blah, blah. So many questions. All these doubts will get full clarity. We'll understand about Krishna, his activities, his form, pastimes, name, which are all not different, right? Then, after these misgivings have been perfectly given, one becomes fixed in one's own study. So first you hear from the devotees, and then all your doubts are cleared. When your doubts are cleared, you start studying, right? So we have so many books, and Prabhupada has written as Bhagavad Gita as it is. I'll tell you one example. His name is Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj, okay, a spiritual master. He has read Bhagavad Gita 10 times before taking initiation. Because at that time the standard was one has to read Bhagavad Gita as it is 10 times. Of course, it's not the standard now for taking initiation, it's only 2 times. But then, back then, it was Prabhupada strictly said one has to read 10 times Bhagavad Gita, then I will give them initiation. And our Guru Maharaj was so sincerely, he actually went through Bhagavad Gita as it is 10 times. So it's an inspiration for all of us. So yeah, one's own study. So all of you, I would request all of you, please go through the Bhagavad Gita verse by verse, trying to understand, reading it repeatedly and repeatedly, trying to understand each and every part of it. Krishna has written it so nicely, so perfectly, that there is no question that there will be any doubt remaining. All the misgivings, all the doubts, everything will get cleared if you can simply read this Bhagavad Gita by yourself and nicely read it again and again and again and again and again. That is very important. Reading Prabhupada books is very, very important. Then that study becomes very much relishable and attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. That is the advanced stage. Okay, by reading books, we come to the advanced stage of Krishna consciousness, because there's some people who have a doubt. What is the connection between reading books and bhakti? Reading books is not bhakti. Prabhupada is writing here, reading books is also bhakti. Reading devotional books is bhakti. Reading Bhagavad Gita is bhakti. Reading devotional commentaries of the acharyas is bhakti. And by reading this, we will attain the feeling of becoming always Krishna conscious. That's an advanced stage, right? And then in the advanced stage, one completely falls in love with Krishna. And then this is the highest perfectional of stage of life, enabling devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual world, Golok Vrindavan, where the devotees become eternally happy. Such a blissful purport, such a wonderful purport, isn't it? So beautifully written, each and every sentence, there's so much to learn, right, devotees? Okay, so that's the essence. So here we have, there's so many ritualistic activities given in the Vedas. Most of the time we are doing ritualistic activities, okay, whatever Vedic culture that we're following today, it's a very diluted version. It's a diluted version of what is actually given. It's almost like take some milk and put some 100 liters of water. I mean, it may look a little bit water, white color kind of a thing, but it's not even milk. So right now, our state of religion or the state of practice that we are doing is so dilute, almost like nothing. Okay, so by doing this, obviously we can't go anywhere. Even if we take it to the strictest forms also, it is difficult to take it. Even if we take it also, there's no guarantee that we will go back to God in this lifetime. Because that is not the process of going back to God. Simply reading Vedas or simply doing yajna or simply giving charity is not the process of going back to God. It is a process of purification so that one ultimately comes to the stage of devotional service. The purpose of all this tapasya is to come to stage of devotional service. So once a person comes to devotional service, one must be advancing in devotional service, not getting stuck. And at that point of time, after coming to the devotional service, then there is no need to, actually do something ulta. That is, trying to do some kind of austerities which are non-devotional austerities, or trying to do some kind of non-devotional ritualistic activities of the Vedas. That is actually strictly not required. Once you get into devotional service, you should be progressing in devotional service as per the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master. So there are so many activities in Krishna consciousness which are given by the previous acharyas. We should be following those activities instead of going back and it's like reverse, because it's said in Srimad Bhagavatam, somebody who is constantly chanting the names of Krishna has already read all the Vedas, has already performed bath in all the pilgrimages, has already given all the charity, and already performed all the sacrifices given in the Vedas. So, if it is that, if you are already chanting the names of Krishna constantly, there's no need for us to be actually going back and doing the same thing. Okay, it's a point for us to advance, like how Prabhupada said, we should be trying to get relish and we should be getting the taste in devotional service. That's the next step. After that, becoming fixed in devotional service. After that, going to the stage of love of Godhead, and then going back to Godhead, to Krishna Loka or Goloka Brindavana. These are the next steps, right? After coming to the higher classes, nobody goes to the lower classes, right? You don't go back again to kindergarten or UKG after coming to, let's say, masters or PhD, right? So it's something like that, devotees. Okay, so thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna. So anybody wants to add anything, please feel free to add. Any questions?
Prabhuji, I have a doubt. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
please. Yes,
On a
please.
personal level, for devotional service, I understand that we don't need to go through these Vedas and tapas and all. We directly need to go for devotional service. But being a Hindu country, we have so many temples to maintain.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do we need to, like the Tirupati and all, or any temple you name it? Do we need scholars who know the Vedas, right? We need to train the spiritual, what is it, pandits in Vedic knowledge, no, Prabhuji, to perform those rituals there.
Yeah, they're already doing it, right?
So they have to go through that sequence, right? They need to.
But they are not going through it as well. Because the problem today is, I'll tell you some practical problems that the Brahmins are facing. Okay, the practical problem is, see, earlier days there used to be kings and there used to be some kind of they used to give agraharas, they used to give cows, so that the people who are Brahmins they could peacefully sit down and recite or read this Vedas, etc. But today the situation is that they can hardly survive. Okay, so we saw in the COVID time, the priests, okay, they were completely out of work and they literally had to beg for food. So that is the state of affair at the moment. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, even if they want to go to the Vedic Pathshala, Veda Pathshala, I've heard this reports that they're unable to continue their Vedic studies. So, for example, they will learn only little bit of rituals so that they can just live. They will learn Satchinaran Puja and they will learn how to conduct some weddings, and their knowledge is very superficial, and because they can't afford it also. That's the situation. That's actually the sad state of affairs. So
No, the
all this
government
is
can the government not take over and
that would be ideal. Actually, the
hmm.
government should be taking over. The government should be promoting Vedic studies, but we have become very advanced. That we have become so advanced that we think that Vedas is something not so
Unnecessary?
important. You see,
Okay.
that is our advancement.
Otherwise, we should be doing that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. So, but then, yeah, that's right. Absolutely. But then it is like this, okay? The Vedic studies is very, very lengthy, very elaborate. And even after reading all of that, also, people are not able to come to the conclusion, right? So, just like Prabhupada also said, there are so many Vedic scholars, Sanskrit scholars in Varanasi. If you ask them what is the essence of Bhagavad Gita, they stammer and they say, we don't know what is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. So this is a time when we don't have so much time to get into all of that. The emergency situation is, to give Krishna consciousness, which is like a one shot for the public, for everybody, right? So this is more important actually, so that everybody is Krishna conscious and can go back to God. That is the need of the hour, because everybody is supposed to be doing this fire sacrifice, right? Yajñartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. So unless one is given this Krishna consciousness opportunity, actually there's no other hope in Kali Yuga. Right? So this is like the need of the hour. This is very much more important, in fact. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very clearly said, right? So he said, if you want to read Vedanta, he said, my spiritual master said, you are not intelligent to read the Vedanta. My spiritual master said, don't read Vedanta. He said, chant and dance. So his instruction is that, read Bhagavatam. If you want to understand the Vedanta Sutras, read Bhagavatam, read Bhagavad-gītā. Don't get into speculatory kind of situation. because there's so much of corpus in the Vedas. It's very easy to get lost into ritualistic activities which lead to heavenly planets, or to get into speculatory activities which lead to impersonal liberation. It's very, very difficult or rare to come to the Krishna conscious aspect, which is like the end of it, the real Vedanta. It's very, very difficult to get there. Okay. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is just directly giving that essence. Okay, this is the final thing, just take this. Okay. Even whatever you're going through, you will anyways have to come to here after many lifetimes. Why don't you just take it now? This is the special feature of Kali Yuga. We should actually be using that feature rather than regressing and going back.
Mm.
This,
Understood, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. Anything else, devotees? Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you, devotees.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.